let's see, Martin Archer, top fan, says, should we stop? This is an interesting question. Should we stop telling kids there's magic in the world? Magical thinking might be a brainworm that starts in infancy with fairy tales, etc. Of course, kids could still believe in Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy because those are basically too big to fail. But stories of magic and such, like Harry Potter and others, perhaps parents should steer their kids clear of stuff like that. I don't think so, Martin, you know. I mean, a belief in magic, and I mean the kind of, wand magic, is something that children believe in, and Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy are things that children believe in. And when I was a child, I believed in those things. Still do, obviously, but when I was a child, I believed in them, and it not only didn't do me harm, it made life fun and interesting and cool. Tooth Fairy is a great example. Losing a tooth is a painful experience. It's not fun. I just remember once you'd feel one of those baby teeth get loose, you start playing with your tongue and then you're just wiggling this thing back and forth, because once you have a loose tooth in your mouth, it's got to come out. And then you'd wiggle it out and it kind of tear loose in your gums and your mouth full of blood and all the rest of its stuff. It's not a fun thing. But then the idea that if I take this thing and wrap it up in a piece of tissue paper and put it under the pillow in the morning, a shiny new penny will appear. I got $1, by the way. I'm sure it's $20 now, or $100. And that was a fun part of growing up. And I can't tell you exactly when it happened, but it was somewhere around the age of 8 or 9, I guess, somewhere around there, where I began to have some suspicions about some of these things. And then I asked some pointed questions, and when my parents thought I was old enough to hear the answer, if I asked before then, they would say, no, of course there's such a thing as Santa Claus. And then when they thought I was old enough, if I'd ask them, is there such a thing as a tooth fairy? Then they would say, all right, look, Bill, here's the deal. We do it. Your mom and I do it. And you can't tell your brothers or sister, okay? They'll know when they're old enough. That age, your childhood between the ages of, really kicks into gear around 2, I guess. From 2 to 6 or 7 or 8, children will believe anything, and there's a reason for this. The reason that children at that age will believe anything is because they have to learn so much in that time period. They have to learn how to stay alive in that time period, and they're not designed to filter information. They can't filter it. They're designed to soak it up and take it in and believe everything, which is why I thought that I could hide underneath the couch on our sofa when I was 4 years old. I thought that if I lifted the pillows up on the couch and got underneath the pillows and then put the bottom cushions on top of me, no one could see me. And when my mom and dad would walk into the room and look around and say, has anybody seen Bill? I thought, this is awesome. It's really working great. And so what my parents were doing were they were indulging me in this idea of magical thinking, but they were doing it for the sake of my imagination, for fun, for all kinds of good reasons. The problem is not that the children. The problem is not children having magical thoughts. The problem is there are some people that never reach the point where they grow up and realize, okay, now it's time to put away childish things. Some people seem incapable of it. And Evan Sayet pointed out that one of the big, most popular things you hear about the left, sold millions and millions of copies, and they love this kind of thing, is this idea that the left loves this book called Everything I Learned About Life I Learned in Kindergarten. And so the book has things like, I learned that sharing was important. I learned that, all these other things. It's like, and when I hear things like this, it just makes me realize that the people who believe this are people who have retreated from the world. It's more than they can handle. And I want to ask them, did you learn about preparing your taxes in kindergarten? What about, ptomaine poisoning. Did you understand the importance of life insurance when you were in kindergarten? Or are all these things adult things that adults eventually realize are important, and the reason that we have a childhood is that our parents protect us from things that are too complicated for us to handle until we're able to handle them? So whenever I hear this, oh, I learned that young children, little kids are the little kids are the ones who have the clearest moral vision. No, little kids are monsters. They're selfish creatures. They will have chocolate across their face, crumbs on their hands, and if you ask them if they ate the chocolate chip cookie, they'll look right in your face and say, "I didn't do it. No, somebody came in. Man came in the window, and came in the window." And he ate 3 of the cookies, and then he ran off. And they'll tell you that with a straight face. They're miserable little lying bastards, is what they are. And that's okay, because they're soaking up everything, and they haven't had a chance, nor are they expected to start sifting stuff yet. And the problem is that after you go through this phase of soaking up everything, somewhere around, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, now you've soaked up enough information to survive statistically, and now you have to start measuring that information, and you go from believing everything that your parents tell you to believing nothing that your parents tell you. And that's, that's how everybody grows up. That's what growing up is. Steve Darrow in the comments section says, "And you want to argue about the moon landing with one of those people?" Yes, I do. I want to argue about the moon landing with one of those people because I have no expectation and really no desire to change them or their mind. What I want to do is I want to get the 95, 96% of the people that listen to these people and who are perfectly reasonable, rational people, easily make these decisions if they hear the other side of the story. I want the other people to get the other side of the story. I went to some event once and somebody was protesting it. I mean, it was like 4 or 5 people. This is a long time ago. It was a long time ago, 2009, something like that. And there were a couple people protesting, and they were like union people, like public sector union people. And I just went out there and started talking with them. And this guy was really heated, and we started talking about things. And by the time I was done, 20 minutes later, he said, you're really right. That's a lot of things I really hadn't thought about. And you make some really good points. And I said, well, you make some great points too. I learned a lot. So I don't want to, there's nothing I can do about people who insist on believing things in the face of evidence that is so overwhelming. And by the way, let me just chuck in global warming here. The left would say, you're a skeptic about global warming. I said, I am, but I'm a skeptic about global warming because the evidence is not overwhelming. If New York were under a foot of water now, like they told me it was going to be in 2005, I would be leading the charge on this global warming thing. But when none of this stuff actually happens, and when you begin to perceive that there's a ulterior motive for all of this stuff, then I become a skeptic. So if you can give me, doesn't have to be incontrovertible evidence, but it has to be evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, and then in which case I'll change my mind. It's not so hard, really.